Hello survivors and welcome to another Walking Dead Road to Survival video, and in this video we're going to be doing a starter guide for Gold Mythic Lethal Lydia, who I did not make a preview for, and it's because I was pretty seriously ill for like 5 to 10 days and it was very difficult for me to make content. You know, it was difficult for me to get out of bed, let alone make content. But we are going to be making a starter guide for Lydia. I'm not going to be catching up on any videos I missed, it's just the way it's gone. But I do think Lydia is a very good character, and I'm very disappointed I missed out because she obviously is a Gold Rush character, which is hype, but she's also a good Gold Rush character, which is even more hype. That's why I'm making a guide for her. I have utilized her a little bit already, and I think she has very, very good potential to be used on attack if you have to specialize her a little bit, but she's going to have very good, potential on attack teams. Now, I'm not going to go over her kit in too much detail, but I will just go over certain aspects of her rush, signature move, and her passives. And basically, I want to highlight the fact that her rush deals damage. It says deals 500% damage to a line of enemies. It's very important to note this because her weapon does block counter damage when she attacks, but it doesn't proc with her adrenaline rush. So if you adrenaline rush, let's say, a payback character, she would still take counter damage if her weapon was the thing that you were using to try and block that. If you were using a leader skill of someone like Maggie, that would work, but her weapon will not block counter damage with her adrenaline rush. It will block it for her signature move, however, because it says attack an enemy for 400% damage. This has on-hit effects. That means anything on her weapon that can proc will proc, but it also means anything on the enemy's weapon that can proc, will also have a chance to proc as well. But it is also worth noting, and this is an added bonus, and this is why we're going to go a certain way with her build in her kit, is her passives have multiple attack procs, and it only works her signature move and basic attacks, not her adrenaline rush. For instance, the first one, agility, does not work with her adrenaline rush. The second one, defense disruption, does not work with her adrenaline rush, and the last one, bullseye, does not work with her adrenaline rush. So those three passives only work with her signature move. Her signature move is the much more consistent part of her kit, and that's what we're going to be building her, her around when it comes to her combat mods, weapon, so on and so forth. Now, Kill Frenzy will work with the adrenaline rush. If you take someone out with a signature move, she'll get 150% attack boost, and that will boost the adrenaline rush, and that's going to be very important. A lot of characters that deal damage as damage dealers do have something else in their kit to amplify it, be it their specialist skill, being cutthroat or something like that, but she doesn't have anything. Her adrenaline rush is very, very weak, so you definitely need that Kill Frenzy to proc and then rush afterwards, be it via command rush or natural rush if you can get a natural turn 2 rush with AP weapons, but a lot of the time it's going to be via command. So what does that mean for her combat mods? And it's pretty obvious. It means we're going to go with crit set because we're going to be hitting potential crit attacks with her signature move and her basic attack. We want to amplify those crits as much as possible, and we're going to go a crit set. If you have an attack on crit set, it is going to amplify the rush as well. It is still worth trying to boost that a little bit, but you could also go with crit chance because she's going to have massive amplifiers in her kit, because her passives do defense down, and she gets really good, she bypasses defense rating. If anyone has like a 400% defense buff, it doesn't work. So she doesn't necessarily need attack stat for her signature move or her basic attacks, but this will boost her entire kit, so it is generally worth going for this. In the top right hand corner, this is pretty much where you've got to decide what team am I going to use her against. Am I using her against Denise teams, where you would double down on attack versus strong? She already is alert. She'll do massive damage boost against Denise teams. They are always full strong, pretty much, so you're going to be doing lots of damage. Decap's going to be very nice. Specialist decap is going to be very nice indeed. There are characters in those teams now that do revives. You've got like Carl and the new Morgan, so decapping their teammates, it just makes sense. But you can also use her against other teams, obviously. I have used her against Telltale teams, and Telltale teams have a lot of tough characters. So we're going to go with attack versus tough here in the top right-hand corner. Personally, I've had a little bit of issues with Telltale and Lydia, and some of the lone wolves have helped me out quite a bit here. Now when we go into bottom right-hand corner, because I want to use her against Telltale teams, we are going to primarily come up against Clementine lead, and Clementine has a 100% chance to daze damage roll characters. So we need a daze resist because her signature move is what we're building her entire kit around pretty much. So we do not want to get dazed. Now Clementine is not a control roll character, so it will be a flat 90% if you have Paragon. It will not be negated down to 50%, so this will be ultra effective against that particular daze, which is obviously very nice indeed. Now in the bottom left hand corner, I would say this is pretty much obvious call of extra crit multiplier. You can get this mod along with attack versus tough on crit set right now in the Thanksgiving event store, and I don't think the character or the weapon in that store is that great, but these mods are fantastic and they'll massively boost Lydia's damage potential when it comes to just hitting crits and also attacking tough characters. So with this, I'm just going to lock in these 4 mods and then we'll move on to the wildcard slot. Now when it comes to the wildcard slot, if you did primarily want to use this character against one particular team, in this case Telltale, you could figure out what another resist type you would need. For instance, you potentially could need Impair because you're going to come up against a lot of tough characters that are going to potentially have Impair on defense. You could want to go for Taunt because you are going to come up against potentially Luke, who has Taunt potential. You could go attack while taunted so that if you did get taunted, you get a big attack boost. And even though it would be her basic attacks, she gets amplifiers with the defense down and the rest of her kit to actually do reasonable damage there. Or you could try and make her a little bit more spread across multiple teams, and that's what I'm trying to do. And I'm going to go for attack versus strong here. I do not have one on a crit set, so we're going to have to go offset. I think I've got on defense, as you can see. And now I've got attack versus strong and attack versus tough. And I am going to use this character primarily against Telltale teams and Denise teams, but because these 2 traits also cross over into alpha teams and you also need daze resist there too, she could work against alpha teams. The issue you've got there is that resist would get reduced down to 50% chance to resist, and that is a little bit of a problem. Maybe someone comes out that has some sort of daze cleanse in their kit as well, could be quite useful. We'll have to see what happens in the future, but basically I primarily have built her to work against Telltale and Denise teams, and she works very nice there. The decap is nice, the damage output is very nice. She is going to hit extremely hard when built kind of like crit damage potential. And you can see she's getting a slot bonus of 54%, plus she has the 75% from the actual crit multiplier mod too. Every attack and signature move that she does, the enemy will get minus 60% defense. She's going to do crazy damage for sure. Now when it comes to Lethal Lydia's base weapon, I will straight up say it is very disappointing. The 4 slot would not exist if this character was an advanced or an ultra. It's only that 4 slot because she's free to play. She would have definitely had at least a 1535, maybe even something very special there when it comes to hitting crits. She could have had a 100% crit chance. She could have potentially even had like the improved 1535, which would have been absolutely amazing on her. Then you could at least upgrade the attack stat 3 times to make it 55% attack. But as things stand, I think the best thing to do would just be to change the last slot to a 1535 in the armory and then give her 2 plus 5% attack stat on her main stat. This would make the weapon look like this, as I have upgraded it as I say there. And it's actually not too bad, as much as it is a little bit disappointing. It would have been nicer, obviously, if it was improved 1535 and an extra 5% attack. Yeah, obviously the damage output would have been nice. But even with these, this particular weapon, she can still get over 130, 140k attack stat on a lot of teams if she's got other 1535s around her, which she will need because she does need to hit crits. So if she's got 2 1535s around her, she's got one in her own hands, and her base 10 crit, she'll have 115 crit rating, which gives her over a 50% chance to hit the crits, which is obviously great. Obviously there's depreciating crit chance when it comes to hitting crits. The higher the crit rating, the better, but you can never hit 100% crit chance anymore. It's just the way it goes. Now, if you're getting counter damage reduction from other sources, for instance, Maggie Lead, this weapon might actually be bugged because we did have an issue with Heng Yen. That might have actually been fixed. But if you went over 100% counter damage reduction, you'd actually start taking counter damage for whatever reason. So you wouldn't necessarily want to use this with a Maggie Lead, but you also wouldn't need to. So you could go to a much heavier damage dealing weapon where the 3rd slot gives better damage bonuses, maybe higher attack stat in the first slot, just to get more damage output with that signature move and basic attacks. A weapon that we've been given in the past via a battle pass was Kenny's Glock, and this gave up to 50% attack. You could swap out some things and obviously get the bonus attack versus enemies with more than 50% HP. When you're attacking on the first turn, that's going to happen. And at 1535, this is going to be very nice. That signature is going to be boosted very, very nice indeed. Now, if you didn't get this weapon, you can make a more basic version of the weapon in the armory, which just has 45% attack instead of 50%. And that would be this weapon right here. Any weapon that has 30% base attack can get to this. It takes 3 5% upgrades to get to 45% attack, and it takes 3 upgrades through the second slot, third slot, and fourth slot as well. This is a good baseline weapon, but you probably have a better weapon if you've been playing a little bit longer, or you've been getting weapons in events, so on and so forth. Anything that amplifies the damage of Lydia is great, and you're 100% fine to swap in a weapon into her hands if you don't need her to actually have the third slot proc. But you may actually need that to happen. Just be careful with the team that you're building with her. So for instance, this is a very free-to-play accessible team. We do have the 3 1535s with Lydia holding one and the surrounding characters. We also have some disarm with a little bit of ransack on that character. And then we also have the 1 copy of Laura, who everybody realistically should have, free to play or not. When she came back, when she's been in Wheels, you have to get yourself 1 copy of Laura just to utilize, you know, that speed element that she's going to bring to the table. And this is, like I say, a pretty decent free to play team, adding damage, control, and you should be able to get through a reasonable amount of content with this team. However, a different team I have been trying out, which is a bit more premier obviously, is going to be this team right here. You would only need 1 copy of Maggie and 1 copy of Laura realistically in this team to get what we are going for. We're just going for the damage reduction and the command and AP gain from Laura. But obviously the other 2 characters generally have to be LB3. You want to get the best out of them, you know, the best control, the best everything you can possibly get. And that's what we're going to get from Eva and Ghost and They Who Wander. The combination between those 2 characters with pretty much anyone else is going to be really nice. But Lydia obviously adds decap. She has got really fantastic damage. Having a disarm is quite important for Lydia. That's why I had one on both teams. But we're now going to just show you how it works against counter damage and the kind of problems you can face with that. Okay, so here you can see we are coming up against a Clementine lead, and we have resisted the days that she is going to throw at us. We have got a 90% chance to do this. I'm just going to hit Clementine with Julie here, hopefully just spreading some of the disarm around as we have. You can see we have managed to disarm this character in the bottom right hand corner. Generally speaking, it would be good to signature move the character that did get disarmed, and the reason we would do that is just so we don't get impaired, for instance, when we do the signature move. Now, the problem we've got right now is there's nothing blocking counter damage for the rest of my team, so I do have to set this up with Sophia, which we're just about to do. So now I have camouflage on the rest of my team. Now I could take out other characters with Sophia, but I want to just show you how it works with Lydia. We're going to do the signature move with Lydia, and we are going to take out the character we need attack, and you can see counter damage did come back, but we blocked it with Lydia, and we also blocked it with Sophia because of the Guardian shield she had. This is obviously fantastic. I'm just going to hit the defend action on Trader. Now we do get taunted on Lydia, but because we're doing basic attacks, we are going to be absolutely fine here, because we are just hitting, like I say, basic attacks, and we're going to have the counter damage come back. You can see she's got 150% attack bonus. So now what might happen is I might hit another one. Let's see, and I might take him out. Or very close indeed. What I'll do is I'll just take him out with Jesus, and I'll hit the command here. Now we've got the adrenaline rush. Now we've still got camouflage on everybody, and we would, generally speaking, be fine doing this. However, because it's deal damage, the weapon's not going to proc. So we're going to always take the counter damage with Lydia. We may take the character out, which we actually don't. Oh, we just do. We just take him out. but we didn't actually block the counter damage. Somehow Sophia died. I think she had a Guardian Shield. Maybe I missed it. But regardless, the issue is deal damage doesn't work with the Adrenaline Rush on counter damage reduction. You have to have the leader bonus being someone like Maggie to get that come in. Now I'm just going to show some attacks on the screen from the last weekend's war, just me using her in slightly different teams. I think I was using her in mainly a Lone Wolves team, and I did have some issues with Laura in this team, obviously getting the counter damage, and I was just testing out Lethal Lydia, and she was working very nicely. I think she is a really good damage dealer. I think you can utilize her to a very high standard. If you did pick up even just one copy of Maggie, I think the combo there would be very, very good. That way you could use a much heavier hitting weapon in her hands. Her base weapon can be okay, but realistically it's not that amazing, just because obviously you would want to get as much damage amplification as possible, and that third slot doesn't add anything to damage. It does add to survivability, but you could just get that survivability off of Maggie's lead skill and then amplify that damage even further on the SIGs and the basic attacks. An extra 45% attack against characters over 50% HP would be very, very nice indeed. And as you can see with these clips that I'm showing, she destroys certain characters. The strong and the tough characters she hits extremely hard, and because she's decapping them too, and there's revivers in those teams that generally would be problematic, those characters can't get revived. So no problem, you just target the characters that can get decapped with Lydia, and you should be able to like finish off the rest of the characters with the rest of your team. Obviously, like I said, specializing Lydia against particular team or teams is very, very useful. I'd say probably the max you can do is like 2 teams because of the 2 attack versus. It's very risky to try and go further than that, but you could get lucky. Like I said, the 2 teams I'm gearing her against also combine the traits for alpha teams, but it's just a bit of an issue when it comes to that alpha 50% chance to daze. It's just one of them things, and we built everything in her kit around her signature move, so we don't really want to get dazed if we can help it. Hopefully someone comes out in the future that can support Lydia when it comes to maybe daze cleanse or something like that. We'll have to wait and see, but I think Lydia, like I say, is a very good damage dealer. If you have any thoughts about Lydia, her kit, how you'd want to build her, let me know in the comments down below. What kind of teams are you using her against? Have you utilized her so far? Like I said, I think she's very worth using. She visually looks really cool. Her weapon obviously looks really cool, but her kit works very nicely with her signature move and her basic attacks. If you do get things to work correctly, where you set up with a kill for that Adrenaline Rush, the Adrenaline Rush works too. But if you don't have an attack buff, that Adrenaline Rush is pretty bad. I'd even say it's probably better off doing a basic attack against the character than it is doing her rush, because at least with a basic attack you can do 60% defense down, whereas her Adrenaline Rush is doing nothing. It's pretty bad, honestly. But do tell me your thoughts, like I said, about this character, how you're going to kind of build her. This is my starter guide. If you want to share this with your faction or any friends that play RTS, I would appreciate it. I want to thank you very much for tuning in, and as always, keep on surviving, guys. Keep on surviving.